All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. I am Tom. I'm usually with George, and George actually is here in the chat section. I see him saying that Tom needs me to keep him on time. And George wants to let everybody know, hi, everyone. I'm in Miami for the boat show. So Valentine's Day. George is in Miami. I'm flying solo today, so welcome everybody on what was a little bit, maybe possibly you might call this week boring, which might well be a step in the right direction. Although I will tell you, people are getting frustrated. I think the Bitcoin miner investors are at their all-time high level of frustration right now. You guys can let me know where you're at. I know a lot of people are getting angry. So, and this was actually not a bad week. We'll take, in just a minute, we will take a look at what the Bitcoin miners did this week because it was actually decent. So before we do that, if you guys could do me a big favor and hit the like button, it does help the stream out in real time. We have 17 likes right now. We're going for 100 likes, which we get every week, and then 200 after hours. So do us a favor. If you're here live watching, smash it now. If you're watching some point in the future, smash the like button. It'll still help. So thanks, everybody. Even Tom doesn't want to start on time. Yeah, I know. I just, you know what? I gave a little, I feel like I need to give a little explainer, which I just gave to the members. A lot of the stuff I'm going to go through today, I update. I have to wait until 4 o'clock to update a bunch of my charts. So from 4 to 4:15, I'm frantically updating a lot of my charts, and I end up being 3, 4, 5 minutes late. So I apologize for not starting on time. I always, every week, I feel like, this week I got it. I'll be ready, and I'm typically a few minutes late. So that's my excuse, whatever it's worth. And Midway, thank you for the super chat. IREN and Cypher were able to do pretty well this week. IREN had good earnings. Cypher showed quieter strength. Do you think their daily charts look good? So I'm going to look at, I think I may have IREN's up already. So we can look at IREN and Cypher's charts. And there were some. So I will look at both of those Midway. IREN had earnings. They had good earnings. Their stock was already on the move before earnings. It kept going after earnings. So there were a few stocks that actually had a good week. This was not a bad week. It wasn't a great week either. And, you know, we've come off of a couple of really, really tough weeks, and people are really starting to lose their patience. I think everybody thought by the middle of February, we would be in a very different place with the Bitcoin miners, myself included. So there's no doubt, like, this is not at all where I expected the Bitcoin miners to be. And I see George in the comments saying this was a great week for crypto. Things are moving. So yeah, depending on what crypto you're in, I mean, I think things may have bottomed out and turned around and started to move back up, including Bitcoin. Pulled back a little bit. You can see on these 15-minute candles, it pulled back. It ran up today through the middle of the day, and then it kind of pulled back to where this line is a couple of days old. This is where we were, I think, 2 days ago. So, I mean, we have been trading in, let's go to the 1 day, because this really shows it. If you go all the way back to February 5th, it's now February 14th. I mean, look at this tight range we've been trading in. All of these opens and closes are within a few dollars of each other, particularly, 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a row within like $20 or $30 of each other. And then up a little, down a little, up a little, down a little, up a little today. So very sideways. If you take all these days put together, we're actually up a tiny little bit over the last, 8 or 10 days. So, but this is a lot of consolidation. I'm pretty encouraged by it. I always talk about, this sideways activity. When you're in a bull market, your chances are better than not that the end of this is a break to the upside. Now, that's obviously not always the case, but even if we were to look at You know, I have this box that I've had on the daily RSI. This goes back to November of 2024. And I've just felt like, you know, there have been big runs, like all this sideways activity. We were basically, other than one anomaly, we were trapped inside this box. Well, if you look what just happened to us over the last several weeks, we've been 100% trapped inside this box. And I will say, a few days ago on Tuesday, we touched the exact bottom of this box, which is at around 41 on the daily RSI. So 50 is neutral, but 40 to 50, you know, this type of sideways activity, I feel like, you know, is going to break to the upside. Obviously, not financial advice. And, you know, that's just my opinion, but I'm encouraged by how this looks. I was actually decently encouraged by how the Bitcoin miners, no, they didn't go off to the races, you know, no huge runs this week, but they did just fine. And they did so in a strange way. There were a lot of days where Bitcoin was up, the Bitcoin miners were down. And then the next day, Bitcoin was down and the Bitcoin miners were up. So it was, you know, they weren't trading on a one-to-one basis on a daily basis. But by the end of the week, everything seemed to, I think, find a decent place, which we'll look at next. And George is saying the 17th is going to be a big day. And he's saying dogetracker.com to see where your money is being spent in the USA. Ah, gotcha. Sour Melon Gaming is saying, does anyone have any opinion on the FUD Rex finance throughout in the IREN video? So I didn't see his IREN video. I didn't know he made any videos on IREN, but it sounds like he had some negative things to say. So you guys can drop in the comments if you saw, or what you guys, more importantly, what do you guys think about IREN? And then I'll let you know what I think. We'll go through their earnings, right? Hive put out earnings this week. IREN put out earnings this week. CleanSpark put out earnings last week. I have a schedule of all of the rest of the company with their earning dates, which are over the course of the next month, some sooner than others. So, you know, we're getting a lot of information. Sour Melon Gaming. Ben must be very proud of himself. Bitfarms was only down 2%, 0.2% this week. Hey, listen, I know Bitfarms is having a very hard time, but I'm hanging in there. And George, member for 28 months, and obviously more than a member, a co-host, said Brad Garlinghouse is the crypto advisor to the White House. Trump Coin is buying top 5 coins with their money. So Brad Garlinghouse being the CEO of Ripple, which is the XRP network. Pogo said, I love IREN, but sadly I moved into it for pennies to move into other miners that have done shit. Pardon my French. Brief commercial break to ask people, if you just got here, if you have not yet, can you please hit the like button? It really does help the stream out big time in real time. So it is much appreciated. It's free to do. Talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And I know right now people feel like Bitcoin miners aren't the thing to talk about. I'm a little more optimistic than that. I remain optimistic. Obviously, that's just my opinion. So let's start out with a little IREN poll, and then we'll talk about IREN's. IREN put out their financial statements. Like I said, we've got 3 financial statements that have come out, and the rest are all coming out over the next basically month. So just keep it super simple. Are you a buyer of IREN based on their earnings report? And so let's go through their earnings report right now. We're just going to take a top side look at this. I'm not going to spend, you know, I can do a deep dive on IREN, but this is not the time or the place. Record revenue. So They don't say it, but I want to go down and show you. $113 million of revenue in the quarter. Last quarter was under 50 million. So that's a 129% increase in revenue quarter over quarter. Forget year over year. There's two companies that have grown in size that have just outpaced, really three companies, two as a percentage. CleanSpark and IREN as a percentage had monumental growth. I have that chart. We'll look at it. You know, they double, triple, quadrupled their size in a short period of time. And obviously Marathon is over 50 exahash. So, you know, they've continued to grow. But you can see what it's resulted in with all this extra exahash, with the massive run up in Bitcoin versus those previous quarters. This destroys their record revenue in a month. So if we go back to the top, they also say 53.7 million in cash flow. So they are very cash flow positive. Let's put it this way. They had more cash flow this quarter than they had revenue last quarter. Remember, IREN sells all their Bitcoin. So, you know, these numbers are not, you know, estimates, or there's no hodl. They mine Bitcoin and they sell it. Whether you like that or you don't, you know, we follow 12 different companies. I've been talking about moving that down to 11, and now I'm thinking about moving it down to 10, and we'll talk about the two that, you know, I'm still going to hang on and wait a little bit, but there's two to me that I think have lost interest in Bitcoin mining, and you're going to see become non-factors in the Bitcoin mining world. If they prove me wrong, then, you know, I guess we'll keep going with them. And I'll ask you guys what you think. And I know one of them is a company some of our members have made a lot of money on. It was a great stock to own over the last year, but I think they're changing directions in a massive way. Okay, so IREN. So obviously that's their most operating cash flow they've ever had. And then, you know, net income of $18.9 million. So if we look, let me get down to some of their 31 exahash. They're at 31 exahash of installed exahash. That puts them, let's take a look. This is last month. So there's one company, TeraWulf, that's held me up, and they did not issue a monthly report. We're going to talk about that later. So I don't have the January numbers all updated yet because I was waiting for BitDeer and TeraWulf. Well, now BitDeer has put out their numbers. So this weekend, I can put together all of these charts. These are the December charts. I'll put together that's going back a year in time. I will put together the January charts over the weekend for the month of December, but I already have a summary of them as well that we can look at. But, you know, if you look at exahash as of December, IREN was at 31. That was fourth place. So they are going to remain in fourth place. They're very close with Riot. They're very close in exahash. They're very, very close in the number of Bitcoin we mine, that each one of them mined. We'll take a look at that. Oh, I don't want to ignore Clive here. Clive, thank you so much for the super chat. Clive said, Citibank has officially entered the cryptocurrency custody market by partnering with Swiss crypto custody firm Medico to develop a digital asset custody platform. Guess who owns Medico? Ripple. So there you go, George. If you're still here listening, there's some more Ripple / XRP good news. So thank you, Clive. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. Thanks for the info. So that is very interesting, and I think that's going to be a theme. And I don't think people are going to have to jump through as many hoops as Citibank just had to. Cryptocurrency in banks in the U.S. coming to a theater near you soon, in my opinion, based on everything that they've been talking about in Washington. So we're not there yet, but there's a push going on big time to stop this debanking, you know, is what they're calling it. It was choke point, whatever you want to call it, but there's a pretty huge effort in place to get on everything on the same page and start functioning as a Web3 blockchain, crypto. We're looking, the United States has been adamant with the new administration that they are looking for, they called it, and we'll talk about this later, a golden age. And they actually had a meeting with Congress with that name. So, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic, even though I know we've been sideways for a little bit here. So Minor Deegan, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. Tom, IREN with no hodl has a market cap less 200 million away from CleanSpark market cap. Is IREN overvalued? I have a different twist on that, Minor Deegan, and you bring up a great point. I think CleanSpark's the most undervalued stock right now. CleanSpark and I know people are going to lose their minds when I say the other one. CleanSpark and Bitfarm right now, the price of those two companies is being suppressed in a way that I think is ridiculous. I think it's temporary. I think it's going to correct itself. CleanSpark, is still trading in the $10 range. This is a stock that was at, in 2023, it got up to almost $25. In 2024, it got up to about $18. It's trading at $10 right now. And it is my personal opinion, those two companies, IREN that you mentioned and CleanSpark, operationally speaking, I think those have been the two best performing companies for the last year. And Bitfarms is performing a lot better than people give them credit for. They did increase their exahash 97% as a company in 2024. So on the flip side of that, they fell wildly short of what they said they were going to do. They got to 12.8 exahash, while 10 months of the year, they were talking about how they were going to get to 21 exahash. So they missed that goal, and they missed it by a lot, and they told us too late. And that is one of 4 or 5 reasons that their stock is getting brutalized. But to me, they did double in exahash. They are very good operationally. They have some stuff at management. They're in a little bit of a prove it situation with shareholders, but for they closed at $1.31 the other day. I mean, that I can't even tell you that. To me, that is just lunacy. And the same thing with CleanSpark. CleanSpark is less than, and not that stock price makes any difference, but IREN's stock price and Riot's stock price is now above CleanSpark. There was a time CleanSpark was double their stock prices. So I think there's a lot of value. So no, I don't think IREN is overvalued. In fact, I think IREN stock will have a good year this year. I think it will keep running. But what I also think is CleanSpark is going to run a lot further this year because of the fact that it's been held back so much. There's a 27%, as of January 15th, there was a 27% of the float was short in CleanSpark. I feel strongly when CleanSpark is at 50 exahash, when Bitcoin's at $165,000, at some point, the shorts are going to give up on that trade. And make no mistake, they're covered on these short trades with options that are long. So it's not like they're going to lose money. They're just going to unwind the trade and they're going to go long. And then the stock's going to go through the roof. That's my opinion, but that's how it has worked in the past. George, thank you for the 99 cents. And George has to say a poop emoji. I'm not sure if that's to do with is that your response to what I'm saying right now, George? So Fred's saying, we know it's a great company. Elaborate on what it would take to get rid of the short situation. I mean, here's the thing. There's no guarantee of anything, but the way that these companies make money is not by shorting a stock and keeping it at $10 for the next year. That means they're short and they make nothing, right? Because the stock's already at $10. Unless they think they can short it down to 4 or 2, and that's just not realistic. So how do these companies make money? Volatility. And we are in the most volatile space, maybe in the whole entire stock market, right? Cryptocurrency is incredibly volatile. And the only thing more volatile than that is these are basically derivatives on Bitcoin. So they're even more volatile than Bitcoin. So these giant swings up and down and up and down, they're big money wants to make money in both directions. And I have a philosophy that at some point a company crosses paths with its fair value. So a lot of times, and that's a point in time. So a lot of times, maybe due to short positions, it's way undervalued. Just as many times due to a bubble and, hysteria, it can be overvalued. It can be overvalued 10, 20x. We've seen companies with zero revenue, no product, not even a product, just a blueprint of what they hope to one day make a prototype of, run up to $50 billion, right? And some of those companies are now out of business because they were never even able to do what they said they were going to do. So at any point in time, stocks can be at a price I'll say don't belong. But I do think ultimately the way they do get to their fair value, and at the top of this bull market, they may get to a hysterical number that's more than their fair value. That has happened in most previous cycles. So maybe that won't happen this time. Maybe all they'll do is run up to their fair value. But these companies that are short this stock, they've shorted them to a point. I mean, the people that have shorted Bitcoin down to $1.40 or $1.30, how much more money do they think they can make shorting it? So it's time to unwind those trades, get out of them, right? My guess is most of those people have call options on the other side as protection. So they're making money on the short side. They'll make money on the call options. They'll buy the stock, run it up. I mean, that's when you have that kind of money that, we don't have that as retail investors. We can't do that to a stock, but when these are small stocks, even the big ones are $3, $4, $5 billion market caps. The little ones are under $1 billion market cap. This is not like trying to move, Apple or Microsoft or NVDA at $3 trillion. Trying to move them is like moving a mountain. And companies are even able to accomplish that. So if they can do that with a $3 trillion company, imagine what they can do with a $3 billion company. So in all previous cycles, that's how it has played out. I know the people are starting to lose confidence, lose faith. They feel like this is taking longer than previous cycles. And a lot of people think there's this trade that's long Bitcoin, short the Bitcoin miners, and that trade's never going to end. I just simply disagree with that. There's no sense in always being short something. You're not making any money. Once you've driven it down, the next way to make money is to let it run back up. So, and these companies, to me, and obviously just in my opinion, seem to be clearly undervalued right now. Pretty much, I follow 12 companies. They're on the screen right now, and at least 8 of these, in my mind, are anywhere from undervalued to ridiculously undervalued. That's my opinion. So I think we got multiples coming ahead. But only time will tell. And Midway is talking about something else that, we're going to see if this bears out. But I think there is the potential for this, which is an extended cycle. We've been in this 4-year cycle, but a lot of data points are different than they've been in the past. And Bitcoin is a lot more mature. Cryptocurrency is more mature. We have a cryptocurrency-friendly administration. So, for those 4 years, I think you're going to see adoption. And I've got every single stream, I have a few articles that I show you guys of new adoption. More people, institutions, countries, whatever the case may be, entering into Bitcoin, buying more Bitcoin. And so I have several of those for you today. So I think the adoption's only just begun. So we could have an extended cycle. And Midway's saying the mining stocks might wind up not having a bear market until the second half of 2027, when the 2028 halving starts getting priced in. And I think that's possible, especially with the miners. I've been talking for the last year or year and a half that some of the miners at the top of this list: Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot, IREN. There's a few others. Cypher, Hive has announced some gigantic plans. Hut has announced some plans. So these are maybes. These are on the drawing board. We'll see if they execute these plans. But their plans, there's 4 companies that already have. And what they've done is, I think they've tried to get ahead of the next halving. They've doubled down this halving so that they can get out of this vicious cycle of going down 90 to 99% in the crypto winter. And that is to create become vertically integrated, create the power infrastructure, right? We know the machines get obsolete over time, so they will have to replace machines, but they're not going to have to replace power infrastructure. They're getting long-term, very, very low-cost energy deals, and that's the big advantage when you're scaled up at this size and you're buying that much energy. If you can buy it at 3 or 4 cents instead of 8 cents or 11 cents, that's all the difference in the world. As in addition to the fact that they keep buying better, more efficient machines, so they pay less for their energy and they're using less energy to do more. So, the equation's getting better and better for these companies. It's not getting reflected in their prices by and large, and neither is the HODL position for, Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Hut. They all have 10,000 or more Bitcoin, all the way up to Marathon's got 45,000 Bitcoin. So with those big HODL positions, as Bitcoin continues to increase, remember the difference on a quarterly basis, they get to mark that up, and that is a part of income from operations, according to GAAP, the new GAAP rules. So these companies are going to have a lot of income, right? CleanSpark just made $200 million of GAAP income, they reported last week. And that was for the period ended, the 3 months ended December 31st, 2024. So I expect the 3 months after that to be even better. So, making now you've got companies that for a couple of years were losing money. At one point, their gross margin was negative, right? It was costing more per coin to mine a Bitcoin than the value of Bitcoin. Well, that has flipped. CleanSpark's cost all in, not per their investor presentation, per their financial statements. If you do the math, they paid $36,000 per coin. And, Bitcoin's at $100,000. So there's a lot of gross profit in the middle. So these companies are making a lot of money and they're getting the markup, right? In addition, CleanSpark has 10,000 Bitcoin, so they got to mark those up because Bitcoin ran substantially higher from September 30th to December 31st. And I think we can expect most of the quarters for the next 3 or 4 anyway for Bitcoin to keep going up, in my opinion. So I think you're going to see really good financial statement after really good financial statement. The fourth quarter of the calendar year 2024 are the financial statements we're getting right now. Not all of these Bitcoin miners are on a calendar year, but so far, the 3 companies that reported all had GAAP income. So we haven't had that. We haven't had that before. So I think as all these things build, they just get together. And Edmund is saying, warning, do not look for a big drop in the fall. Too many large players, companies, states, sovereigns, etc. will be stacking during the second half of 2025 and 2026. MicroStrategy and other deep pockets will keep stacking. So, Edmund, thanks for the comment. That goes straight to what we were talking about, which is maybe an extended cycle, right? There's so much adoption going on, and the rules are going to continue to change in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency's favor that we don't know what the end of this, what or when the end of this cycle is and what it looks like. Momentary timeout to ask everybody to please smash the like button. We're at 53 likes. We're going for 100 likes live, 200 likes. But first we got to get to 100, and we're at 53. We have gotten to 100 on every single live stream. So help us. Help us. And Ty said, traders keep giving up their minor shares to institutions. But that's exactly, you're right, Ty, and that's exactly how this works. And that's why, so however long we all thought the Bitcoin miners were going to be beat up, they're going to beat them up a little bit longer so that more and more and more people give up and get out. And I can just tell you, looking at the comments section on my channel, like I've never seen the rage that's out there right now is at an all-time high. So Bitcoin miner investors are frustrated. A lot of them have already quit. You know, I think the next 30, 60, 90 days, if we don't have a big move, most of the rest of them are going to give up. So we'll see when this move comes. I remain optimistic. That's just my opinion. I don't see any fundamentals that changed that say, this run's going to be worse than previous runs. If anything, the amount of catalysts going on right now far exceed any other Bitcoin cycle. So this should be a better than average cycle. I know there's a law of diminishing returns that people talk about. Each cycle won't be quite as good as the last one. I don't know that that's going to be true. I see this cycle being better. I think the last cycle was an anomaly. We had all forces going against Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and we had a series of catastrophes culminating in the FTX situation. But prior to that, right, we had a stable coin unwind. They were, what did they call it? Algorithmic stable coin. So, it wasn't just pegged. It didn't just buy the dollar if it was pegged to the US dollar. It was doing some other thing quantitatively to try to stay pegged to the dollar. Well, it failed. Everybody lost all their money. There were several instances of this back to back to back to back. We're not having those. We had to go through, all the Mount Gox and Silk Road and all the other stuff. But, it was bad news for years. But, I think we're just starting the cycle of good news, and it could last for years. Sour Melon Gaming said, Tom, I made a big move this week, sold 100K shares of Wolf from 60, bought them at 61. So I remembered that number. So, Sour Melon Gaming, I've been watching TeraWulf, and I'm going to talk about them. And I was, I don't give financial advice, but I was thinking in my head, you know what? I hope Sour Melon Gaming gets out and takes his profits right now, because I think now is the perfect time to do that. So I happen to agree with you. So bought them for 61 cents, sold them for $4.93, put all the money in CleanSpark. Wolf's move to stop monthly reports was a deal breaker, so I want to talk about that, and I agree with you. I think there's a reason they stopped their monthly reports, and I feel like you are the home run winner on the TeraWulf trade. Getting in at 61 was phenomenal. Everybody was afraid to buy. That was at the depth of the crypto winter. And getting out near $5, I mean, that's how you win at this. So there are people winning. I know, unfortunately, there's people losing because, they buy on FOMO and sell on panic and they lose. So, that's always going to be the case. But congratulations, Sour Melon Gaming. I actually thought about that exact trade for you the other day. So that's awesome that you actually did that. That's a big win. And I do believe CleanSpark's run is ahead of them. I mean, the fact that they didn't start running after a quarter, the quarter they just had, to me, I give them pretty much an A across the board in every category. Balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. They increased their HODL position. I think their growth. They've also, by the way, and I think the market's waiting to see it to believe it, they're not going to dilute this quarter. They've already told us we have all the money we need to get to 50 exahash, and they're going to 50 exahash. We have all the money we need. We can use our own spaces that we already have, so we don't have to buy any new space. We're getting to 50 exahash. They're at the market offering is closed, and they have no short-term plans to open a new one. Now, that doesn't mean they're never going to open another at the market offering or issue convertible debt, because they will, of course. These are growth companies, but I think they have intentionally, in fact, they went a step beyond that and bought back over $11 million of their own shares, saying, listen, if you guys are going to drive our stock price down to $9, we'll buy the stock. So we talked about this on the members only stream. I think they should do more of that. I think they should put out, and again, I'll credit, I can't remember which member it was who basically said, one of the ways to stop this shorting of the stocks is to put a buyback program out there. CleanSpark should put a $200 million stock buyback purchase program in place. And just put a floor in on this nonsense, because they should buy their stock back at $9, at $8, at $7 if it gets to those numbers, because it's worth, in my opinion, so many multiples more than that. Do your at the market offerings at $25, not at $10. And they've told us they're going to do that, is the point. So I have good feelings about that one. Good feelings about several of these. I have not, there's a couple I'm getting nervous about, and they may win a different way, but I think there's two companies that are strongly considering getting out of the business. One of them is almost all the way out, which is Bit Digital. So I think Bit Digital's future is somewhere between, Bitcoin being a very small part of their business. Remember, it used to be 100% of their business. So, if they get that down to 20% of their business, to me, that's kind of exiting the space. And I'm going to tell you, when we get to the TeraWulf situation and talk about it, I'm going to go through what they've done. They have had very little growth compared to their competitors. They have not talked about big growth plans. And I think there's a couple of reasons they did not put out a monthly operational report. And one of them is we're going to get, let me find this. Okay, so upcoming events. They have an event February 27th. When is their... they have not announced when their earnings is. Double check that. They have not announced when their earnings is. They have an event coming up February 27th. So maybe we'll get some insight. They did not do a January operational report. That has been business as usual on either the 3rd or the 4th of the month for years now. So all of a sudden for them to stop is disturbing. It's a lack of transparency. What do investors assume when all of a sudden, transparency goes in the wrong direction? If you didn't tell us, it must be bad, right? And we don't know that, but that's the default assumption. It's a void, it's a vacuum. So that is not good. The other thing is their most recent investor presentation was November 12th. So they've been silent for many, many months. And if we look at that investor presentation, tab. Okay. So if you look in this presentation, 750 megawatts potential capacity, 250 megawatts deployed for Bitcoin in 2025, 500 megawatts deployed for high performance computing. So even back in November, they were telling us they are leaning towards high performance computing. Now, they don't have big contracts for this yet, and maybe they will come. And so maybe they'll get gigantic high performance computing contracts. Maybe they will have incredible gross profit margins, and maybe they will make a lot of money. Maybe. But what it seems like they're not doing is mining any Bitcoin. And I will show you what they've done. I mean, they are mining so substantially less Bitcoin than their competitors. It's ridiculous. And if you look at their plan, as far out as they're willing to project is Q1 of 2025 to get to 13 exahash. The last thing they reported, and I'm going to go to another page because it actually agrees right to it. This 9.7 here, they said Q1 of 2025, and they reported they are at 9.7. They hope to get to 13.1, but again, this is something they said back in November. So they haven't said anything since then. So I don't know what their plans are. These already, this would put them, so to put it in perspective, if I go back to the list here, HUT has plans to get, to double 13 exahash. Hive now has plans to get to 24 or 25 exahash. BitDeer, I expect to get past that. So TeraWulf is already in 8th place in exahash. They can move to 9th or 10th or 11th, and I don't even count BitDeer. So that would just put them in dead last place out of all the Bitcoin miners from a scaling standpoint. The other part of their equation is, this was their December report. You'll see I took a screenshot here and highlighted a few things. 7.8 cents per kilowatt power cost. That is really high. I don't know another of the Bitcoin miners that we follow that pays anything near this. We've got some in the 2 cent, 3 cent, 4 cent range. More importantly, forget what that is. When it's all said and done with, they told us in December their power cost, right? Not all, and everybody goes, well, it's apples to oranges. No, this is their power cost. So that my all-in number of all direct costs, if you look at CleanSpark's financial statements, their all-in costs, excluding depreciation, and of course, this obviously excludes depreciation as well, their all-in cost, everything direct cost, was $36,000 a coin. And here you've got TeraWulf in December at almost $63,000 a coin. So that was a huge jump from November. Not a lot of explanation why. And now, so they go from reporting, 41 was already a big jump. They were at 35. They went to 41. Then they went to 63. And now they're saying, guess what? We're not reporting. So that is, on paper, that does not look good. So I don't know what is to come, right? They sold off one of their Bitcoin mining facilities. Sarmel Gaming saying, it almost feels like Wolf is giving up. There was so much optimism out there on their team 6 months ago, and now it just seems like they aren't as excited. So I think they internally decided AI, / high performance computing is all the rage. We are better off focusing on that. And from a stock standpoint, just as you benefited from Sour Melon Gaming, from a stock price standpoint, they were right. But from a fundamentals of their company standpoint, I'm not sure where this leaves them. It leaves me not knowing how they're doing. What I do know is if we go to the number of Bitcoin mined, right, you got to go down to, they're at 100, they were at 158. And by the way, that was an anomaly. That was a big jump from the previous couple of months. They were at around 100. So they jumped up a lot to 158, but that is not in this Bitfarms, Cypher, Core, Scientific. This is the 200 to 300 range. And these companies are all adding exahash. So TeraWulf's already behind those. And this is the second and third tier group because, you've got Riot and IREN in the 30 exahash range, both with plans to get to 50 exahash at some point. IREN actually sooner than Riot. And CleanSpark's already at 40 exahash, and Marathon's already over 50 exahash. So, by the time you get all the way down here, you're talking small potatoes compared to your direct competition, and your growth plans are even smaller than their growth plans. So I don't know what becomes of the Bitcoin mining portion of TeraWulf. I have lost confidence in it for, again, this is not financial advice. Maybe they know they've got a bunch of people that they're talking about multi-billion-dollar contracts. on the high performance computing side of this. And, I don't know what the lead time is on to go from, backlog to contract. So maybe, maybe they know something that I don't know. They should tell us what's your pipeline, what's your backlog, what's your this. If they're going to get all these high performance deals, because it's becoming apparent, it doesn't seem like Bitcoin is their focus right now. MicroStrategy is leaving because he thinks that I love Bitfarms and hate TeraWulf. I mean, anybody can come or go as they please. They're welcome to do so. Everybody's welcome here. And, I'd rather somebody put in the comments section, if they disagree with something or they think I said something wrong, point it out. Say, hey, that's not true. You just said something about TeraWulf, and whether it's not true or whether you disagree with it, make a counterpoint. Don't just say, I'm leaving. You're trashing TeraWulf. I'm not even sure. I just said maybe they're going to get multi-billions of dollars worth of high performance computing, but how many? So let's do let's see what the majority thinks here. Let's end this poll. So are you a buyer of IREN? Well, only 32% said yes. So 68% are not high on buying IREN at this price. So that's an interesting result. Not what I expected. So let's talk about TeraWulf. Okay, so this is a simple one, and it's not whatever you think. Have you lost confidence in TeraWulf because of their December both their December results and now the fact that they're not even reporting their January results? So, because that's basically what the argument that I just made. I've lost confidence. How am I possibly supposed to know what TeraWulf's doing if, after 20 months in a row of putting out a monthly operational report, they don't put out a monthly operational report? I don't know, to me, I don't see how that's a leap, that's a bit of a red flag. It's not a be all end all, and you may have other parts of your investment decision-making process that, you say, okay, I don't love that, but I still like my investment in Wolf, and that's totally your decision. Obviously, you guys do your own due diligence, make your own buying decisions, and only time is going to tell who's right. And sometimes you can be right about a stock even if their company doesn't do well. Their stock may do fantastic. So, who knows? And Sour Melon Gaming is saying, I've condensed my mining portfolio to Cypher, IREN, and CleanSpark. I have the most confidence in those three. So IREN and CleanSpark, to me, and I will tell you, my third place is, believe it or not, is Marathon. So IREN and CleanSpark are my two highest conviction plays right now. Bitfarms used to be in that group, and while I still own all my Bitfarms, I've actually, over the last few months added to that position. My conviction in them has fallen one level based on the stuff we talked about. They missed what their growth projections, but I'm not going to be blind and ignore the fact that while they missed their growth projections, they did increase their exahash in 2024 by 97%. That's a 2x. There's only 4 other companies that did that. So, they were one of the leaders in growth. It's just that they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And as a shareholder, that's worrisome. Their stock price alone is worrisome. Waffles is saying most people are done with the miners. So I think that's true. A lot of people left the miner space and they're never coming back. So, and Miner Deegan is saying Wolf is a failed miner. By the way, have you lost confidence? So voting is free. Vote if you want. And of course, also, if you could please do us a favor, we're at 74 likes now. If you could smash the like button, We're looking to get to 100 likes, and then we'll see where we can go from there. But we always get to at least 100. It does help the channel out a lot, so it is much appreciated, and it is free to do. And of course, if you're new here, you can subscribe to the channel. We talk about Bitcoin miners, Bitcoin, and whatever else happens to be going on in the world. We're usually joined by George, who does the channel with me, but he is at the boat show in Miami today. And today is Valentine's Day, so I know a lot of people have plans and are doing other things. So that's life. Let's see. Starmon Gaming, not bearish or bullish on Wolf. I don't know how I feel about them. Pogo, I think everyone still does hate Hut 8. Hopefully Hut can wake up next week. They have been in a tight range these last 2 weeks. Pogo wants some profit. I will tell you, I've spent the last year warming up to Hut 8. So, I don't own a position in Hut 8. The merger of equals, and I was not alone. We did polls, like 90+% felt that was not a merger of equals. Then they got rid of their CEO, and we're going to talk about her in a minute because she had some big news I was excited to see. Over the last year, if you look at their financial statements, I have a lot more confidence in that company today than I did a year ago. And, we'll get a look. They're going to release their financial statements on March 3rd. That is a Monday before the market opens. So if you want to trade that, you got to trade it on Friday. So we're going to see what Hut did, and I suspect they did decently. And they've made a couple of big announcements buying, potential. One's a straight out order for Bitcoin miners, and the other is an option on like 100,000 Bitcoin miners. So they potentially could dramatically improve that portion of their business. They really didn't buy a Bitcoin miner for like 3 years. So, and you can see they've fallen all the way to 11th place. This used to be, this is one of the, Hut is one of the OGs in this space, right? They've been hodling since the beginning. And, since their merger, other than a purchase they made of 900 and something Bitcoin, they haven't been able to add to that hodl, but they kept all of it, which was over 9,000 Bitcoin. And that was all self-mined Bitcoin over the course of years and years and years. But they took pretty much a 3-year hiatus. But we'll see. It looks to me like Hut wants to get back in the game. We're going to take a look at Hive's earnings. They basically have big growth plans. No, they're not. Not everybody can be in the top 5. But if you can catch up and keep pace with, there's 2 things to keep pace with as a Bitcoin miner. The reward got cut in half. That's just a fact. Now, you make up with some of that by Bitcoin going up in price, right? Bitcoin's up drastically since the halving. Or since the beginning of the year, 2024, I will say, and even since the halving. And then the difficulty level, right? The difficulty level on the Bitcoin network has gone up substantially as well. So you've got to keep pace. You got those 2 factors working against you. You've got the price in Bitcoin going up, working for you. And the other piece that you can have working for you is increasing the size of your fleet, your exahash. So that's the way you can balance the scales after a halving. So that's how you got to keep up. So some of these companies have kept up. CleanSpark outpaced that. IREN outpaced that. Riot outpaced it at this point. For a while, Riot was on pause and they were missing the mark. But now, as of maybe 6 months ago, they finally did what they say they were going to do. So this is one of those better late than never deals. They finally did what they said they're going to do. And you can see they're super competitive. These two, 529 and 516, that was last month. Let's go to see what they did this month. So January of 2025, you're going to see there's one report not in, TeraWulf, and apparently they're not going to report. So, I'm going to have to do my charts without them. So be it. And I will tell you, early in the stream, I mentioned there's 2 of these companies I'm considering maybe taking off the list. The other one is Bit Digital. BitDigital is now at 1.6. As of January, they're at 1.6 exahash. When we've got companies at 15 and 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 exahash, BitDigital is starting to move closer to the territory of the 9 nanocap and microcap stocks that we kicked off the list a year ago prior to the halving, because they're, anywhere from 1/10 to 1/100th the size of the 12 that we kept. But there's another one that I think is heavily focusing on high performance computing / AI. So I think there's a couple of these companies, and again, time will tell. Maybe TeraWulf will go to 13 exahash, and then maybe they'll announce some more plans that they plan to keep growing. But even in their own investor presentation, which they haven't updated in 3 or 4 months, all they talked about was 13 exahash, and they talked about allocating 2/3 of their power to high performance computing. So, and 1/3 to Bitcoin mining. So they're already telling us we're going to be more of a high performance computing company than we are a Bitcoin mining company. So we'll see. And then obviously, if they don't tell us what they're doing, we can't track them because they're not telling us. So if for no other reason than we don't have the information, we can't report the information. And you'll see that these at the bottom, you'll see some light blue boxes. These companies went through in December, November, October, September. In September, the 12 companies that we follow added 15 exahash in total. And you'll see a lot of it is the same companies: Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot, IREN, right? Those were the big gainers in that month. 7.8 in October. That was the smallest month. And again, the big gainers were Marathon and CleanSpark. 20.9 exahash added. So this is how they're keeping up with the overall growth rate of the network, right? We're now post-halving. That part's done. Now they got to keep up with the growth rate of the difficulty of the network, which, indirectly increases the difficulty level for Bitcoin mining. But you can see 20.9 exahash. I mean, Marathon added almost 6 exahash. CleanSpark 2.4 exahash. IREN added 7 exahash in November. In December, 18 exahash were added. So this month was actually a pause, 4.3 exahash. You're going to see, I think, a lot more of these companies. They got where they're going. Does that mean they're going to stop? They're not going to stop, but they don't have to go at this fever pitch pace where they have massive stock dilution. So I think you're going to see a lot of these companies doing a lot less stock dilution. I expect this overall stock dilution to be a small fraction in 2025 of what it was in 2024. And it peaked in 2024. I understand why people feel like it was out of control. But the reality is, if you look at, for instance, I just did a deep dive on CleanSpark this week. If you look at my calculation of how I judged did we get our money's worth, I think the dilution that CleanSpark did, they did more than compensated for with their massive growth. And now it's showing up in their financial statements. They just made $200 million last quarter. Right? These are Bitcoin miners, and that's GAAP numbers. That's not, EBITDA. We're not backing out non-cash items. We're not doing that's GAAP. So they made, another $100 million past that, EBITDA. So these companies are making money. IREN made money. Somebody asked me, what did I think of Hive? So I'll just quickly go through that. Hive made money. But there's something even more important than that. So Hive announces quarterly revenue of $29 million. So you can see CleanSpark had $162 million of revenue. IREN had 118, 116. So those are big numbers. So you can see Hive is a much smaller company, but 29 million was a really good month for them. Adjusted EBITDA of 17.3 million, and they increased their hodl position to 2,805 Bitcoin. So operating margins 6.1 million. They've got some work to do. They have been in the process of updating their fleet to be more efficient. So I think you're going to see this get better as time goes by. They are in the high performance computing business, but you'll see even their annualized run rate is only $10 million. So that is going to be a very small part of their puzzle in 2025. Net income after taxes of $1.3 million. So another company with profit, right? So far, they've all had profit. And we've gone from the second biggest company and third or fourth biggest company with CleanSpark and IREN to one of the, the second smallest company with Hive. Profitable. We haven't had that. We haven't had that in years. But here's the other important thing that they've put out in a series of press releases. They're at 6 exahash today. By September of 2025, they expect to be at 25 exahash. So when we go back and look at this chart of who's doing what, right now, let's go back to the exahash. Right now, they're at 6. That puts them in 10th place. If they get to 25, they will likely pass most of these companies in the middle, including Core Scientific. Core Scientific has gone down in exahash pretty much every month for the last several months. I don't see them allocating any more money. 19 is still a big fleet, but they haven't talked about buying more machines. They're really a dual play. High performance computing is what they focus on. They do already have multi-billion-dollar high performance computing contracts that they're executing on. And so I think you're going to see, and now there's a big if. If they can get from 6 exahash to 25 exahash, that's an awful lot to do. Now, IREN got from 5 exahash to 31 exahash. So, I had to believe that I had to see it to believe it, but they did it, right? They caught Riot. So their growth was astronomical. And CleanSpark, same thing. Their growth was astronomical in 2024. So did they dilute? While they diluted, they got massive amounts of growth. And IREN is going to get from 31. They just did an at the market offering. There haven't been many. There was a series of convertible debt offerings in November and December. Then there was kind of a pause. Then IREN did $1 billion at the market offering. But they talked about two things, getting from 31 exahash to 52 exahash and greatly increasing their energy infrastructure as far as gigawatts going. I can't remember the number off the top of my head what they're shooting to, but this was going to create a bigger, better company, and that's what you're looking for. Are you getting your money's worth from the dilution? And the dilution cannot be every year after year, forever. There has to be at least some points where you've gotten to where you're going. You get to take a pause, reap the benefits of all the money you raised, and make money, like CleanSpark just made $200 million in a quarter, remember. So if you look at their earnings per share versus their stock price, it's ridiculous. Old Jock is saying 2/3 of Hive's market cap is their hodl. Not making much cash, but lots of potential with expansion plans. So yeah, this is one of those, if they do what they say they're going to do, and they can do it in a cost-effective way, they've always been a very efficient company. Yes, they've lagged behind in growth for sure. I think they got the rug pulled a little bit when Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake. Frank, right up till the last day, was lobbying for that not to happen. I think he didn't think it was going to happen, or that it was going to take a lot longer to happen. So they had to switch their plan around. But very quietly, they have replaced most of their fleet. And now they're going to get to phase 2, which is grow their fleet. So let's see if they can execute on that. And, potentially there's a lot of profitability there. So Gary's saying, Hive and CleanSpark only FASB profitable. Both lost money on mining. Well, I have two answers to that. CleanSpark was essentially, if you look at their financial statements, including the accelerated depreciation that they take, they were basically within a few dollars of exactly break even if you back out the gain they get to take on the increase in their hodl position. But you don't get to pick and choose, right? They made a strategy to hodl their Bitcoin. So they get to, that is income from operations for a Bitcoin miner. So they made the money. Yes, I understand your point is fair, Gary, that, if you take that out, essentially, CleanSpark was break even. If you take that out and you keep in, the depreciation, which is a giant number. But I will say, I think that's going to get better in the future, because I do think a lot of these companies put in the investment to, have most of their growth as close to or before the halving as they could. So that's why, 2024 was a big stock dilution year. They bought a lot of equipment, and so we'll see. But it's the best financials they've had in years. I think everybody can agree that on that. Seeker saying Mara's net asset value is 1.29, Hive's is 1.47. No one else close to being that undervalued. And all of these companies, yes, maybe those are the two lowest. I haven't double checked that, but all of these companies by that measure appear to be very undervalued. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And to me, most of the ways I look at it, these companies are still overvalued versus their performance. So just going back to the Bitcoin chart, this was the end of the day trading in the United States. Bitcoin was at 97,236 is where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed today, this Friday. Heads up to everybody. And boom, Edmund is on the same page with me. So I'll read his instead of saying it myself. Market closed on Monday. So a heads up to everybody. The market is closed on Monday in the United States. It's President's Day, which apparently I learned today is technically still legally George Washington's birthday is the official day off. That's the reason for closing the market. It will be interesting to see what Bitcoin does over the 3 days. We could have a nice rally into and through March. So I'm hoping for that. And that brings me, thank you, Edmund, to an article. Let me find this. Okay. Bitcoin looks to break their long streak of weekend skids. So this is not how weekends used to go. The world's largest crypto has declined for 5 consecutive weekends. We have been tanking on the weekends. The weekends used to be a nothing. Sideways. We'd run up a little or down a little, but inconsequential. But this is 5 weeks in a row that were bad weekends. So are we going to break that streak? And in the United States, it's a 3-day weekend. So I am optimistic that we will break that streak. And one of the reasons is, let me see if I can find it. If you look this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so we don't have Friday's numbers yet, the Bitcoin ETFs were big sellers. So that's a change. So I think we stand a chance. That hurt Bitcoin this week to have 4 days in a row and 5 out of 6 days where the Bitcoin miners were sellers, net sellers of Bitcoin instead of buyers of Bitcoin. They still have purchased $40 million of Bitcoin, which, is worth around $100 million at this point. This is just the inflow of money, not the value that it is right now. So there was a lot of outflow this week. So I do think that hurt Bitcoin during the week. And there's a chance that we might have a much better weekend this weekend and break this 5-week streak of bad weekends. Because, in other weeks, if the ETFs bought like crazy all week, they ran the price of Bitcoin up, and then there's no buying pressure from the ETFs on the weekend, and they were falling back. So I don't think you're going to see that this week because we didn't have that buying pressure. We had selling pressure from the ETFs this week. So, obviously we'll see. Let's look at our poll. Have you lost confidence in Wolf because of December results and no January reporting? So we finished somewhere 81% said yes, they've lost confidence. 19% said no. So somewhere near 80-20 on that one. So, and again, time will tell. I don't know. Maybe they'll start putting their reports out again. It's discouraging if you own a stock and you're used to getting certain information and then the company says, we're not giving you that information anymore. You know, it's just, to me, that is difficult, especially since everyone else in their industry is giving that information. So it's a bit worrisome to me, but, you know, it's only one factor among many factors that you may have in weighing your decision as to buy, sell, or hold Wolf. We'll end that poll. How undervalued is Hive? That was from Pogo. I mean, only time will tell. I think that I'll go back to this. Are they going to do this? And how much are they going to have to borrow to do it? Because one of Hive's problems, if I go look, this is Marathon, let me go to Hive. One of Hive's problems, and a little bit, Bitfarms is having this problem. Hive's market cap is $442 million. I don't know how much money they need to raise to get from 6 exahash to 24 exahash. But if they need to raise $500 million or $1 billion, think about the dilution that is on a $442 million company. So that's something to think about. I did buy some Hive. I think that there's a run to be made. They've lagged so far behind their peers. But at this point, I'm going to show you why I think actually Bitfarms is the most undervalued. Bitfarms market cap is $701 million. Right? This is a company that, you know, if we go back to the chart, you know, they mined, Bitfarms mined 201, Cypher mined 219, BitDeer mined 126. So those are the two companies that bookend them as far as number of Bitcoin they mined. They're all in the same ballpark with exahash. So if you look at Cypher and BitDeer, remember Bitfarms was $700 million market cap. Cypher is a $2 billion market cap. And BitDeer, which mines significantly less Bitcoin than Bitfarms, is a $3 billion market cap. Now, BitDeer has some other components to their business. But, I mean, if you look at them as a $3 billion market cap, look at IREN. Their market cap's bigger than IREN. IREN mines 500 Bitcoin. BitDeer mined, I think, 126 this month? 126. I mean, these market caps are out of whack. And so even if you hate Bitfarms, and this is why, you know, whoever it was said, I quit, I'm never coming back, you love Bitfarms and you hate TeraWulf. It's that, so we'll finish the cycle here and look at Wolf. 1.87 billion. So, you know, 2.5 times the market cap of Bitfarms. So that's kind of my point on why I'm looking at certain stocks and saying, I think they're undervalued. Look at their market cap versus their productivity versus the amount they've grown their fleet. So, you know, you can say it's dilution, but dilution, when you look at market cap, the dilution's included in that. Even with all the dilution, they're still, Bitfarms is still only a $700 million market cap. Does that make sense in relation to their peers? I believe the answer to that is no. So I think there's a lot of upside there. And I don't think you're going to see them, right? They had a plan to get to 21 exahash. And originally they said from there, they were going to get to 35 exahash in 2025. They have scrapped that and said, nope, we're not going to go to 35 exahash. And in fact, not only are we not going to get to 21 exahash at December 31st, we're not even going to get there by June 30th. We're going to get to 18 exahash. Why did they do all that, in my opinion? And they're at 15 right now. I think Bitfarms has said, we're going to hunker down. We're not going to do any more at the market offerings. We're not going to borrow any more money. We're going to execute. They just got themselves from 12.8 to 15 exahash. If they get themselves to 18 exahash, they go a period of time without any stock dilution. Now, all of a sudden, investors are going to have a different picture they're looking at. They're looking at a company that's doing what they said they were going to do, that's not massively diluting, and has no plans to massively dilute. So that's my concept on Bitfarms. I started the early in this by saying, they've dropped one tier in my conviction level. They're not one of my top 3. They used to be. And, there's valid reasons to have dropped them a notch, but I still do have conviction in them, and I still do think their stock will go up a lot, mainly because I think it's so wildly undervalued. I want to get to one thing before I forget it, because I just found this a little bit interesting. Riot Platforms announces, this was yesterday, Riot Platforms announces changes to its board of directors and provides update on formal evaluation of AI high-performance computing uses. So they've watched a lot of their peers' stocks run and run and run on high-performance computing talk, not contracts. A couple of them have contracts, right? Bit Digital, BTBT, has some contracts. Significant amount versus their market cap. Core Scientific has gigantic contracts. A lot of these other companies are really just positioning themselves in that space, and the revenue hasn't really come yet. So, there have been 2 different activist investor groups that have come in and asked Riot to consider, instead of being a pure play Bitcoin mining company, consider taking, maybe as much as 600 megawatts and doing high performance computing with it. So I'm going to skip and then go back. Go to this. Retain Evercore and Northland Capital to lead engagement with potential AI HPC partners following increased inbound interest. So, they said they were going to launch a committee. This looks like more of a commitment. Yes, you know what? We are going to take some of the close to 2 gigawatts that they are building themselves, most of which is built in Texas, and we're going to allocate some of it to high-performance computing contracts. So I think they're getting a bounce on that. They're one of the best performing Bitcoin mining stocks in 2025. They were one of the worst performing Bitcoin mining stocks in 2024, and I think it is directly because of this. But the other thing I want to point out, a new member of Riot's board is a name some of you may find familiar, Jamie Leverton. About Jamie. Ms. Jamie Leverton recently served as CEO of Hut 8 Mining Corp. So remember, prior to this merger of equals, she was the CEO of Hut 8. They merged. I felt they pushed her out the door. I don't know what happened behind scenes. And, best of luck to Hut 8. And they may be doing good things, and they may be a great company. But I thought Jamie was doing a great job over there. She's now been added to the board of directors for Riot. I think that's a big add. They've added 2 other people. So if you go to this press release, you can learn more about all of these people. So they've added 3 members to the board, including a former CEO of one of their competitors. So I thought that was a big pickup for Riot, because I really feel like Riot's another one that has massive, massive potential. I think they were drifting a bit in the wrong direction in 2024. They fell way behind on their growth plans. But again, better late than never. They've caught up on those. And, they focused on a hostile takeover of Bitfarms. Well, they've kind of put that on the back burner, which I think is where it belongs, if not just gone altogether. And they're focusing on adding value to their business. And they're getting more and more competitive. If you look, Riot mined 527 Bitcoin. That's their new record. IREN was at 521. These guys have been neck and neck. I mean, they're 6 Bitcoin apart. They're at 31 and 31.5 exahash. So they're roughly the same level of efficiency. That's new for Riot. One of Riot's problems historically was the number of Bitcoin they were mining per exahash was just a lot less than most of their peers. They seem to have fixed that problem. They've grown their exahash. They're getting more out of their exahash. So I like what Riot's doing. And I think this is a good addition to their board of directors. I think it will make a difference because Jamie is not only a Bitcoin person, she's a Bitcoin hodl person. And if you remember, Hut 8 was one of the first ones, maybe the first one to have, they bought that company. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. They bought that high performance computing company to go with the machines they already had. They were doing that really before everybody. So she brings all that experience to the table. Old Jock said, Tom, do you remember what you thought about IREN when they announced their 500 million at the market back when their market cap was only 300 million? Look how that turned out. So you're right, Old Jock, and I will definitely own that. They did two $500 million at the market offerings. On their first one, like Old Jock was saying, they were somewhere around a $300 million company, and they put out a $500 million market cap. I sold my, and I very rarely sell. These are long-term buy and holds for me. Now, I do have an exit strategy somewhere in this cycle. I missed some of my exit strategy in the last cycle. But the point is, I don't sell these stocks typically. IREN, I sold a few years ago when this happened because I just didn't feel they had any proven track record of doing, they announced this and they announced these gigantic growth plans. And I said, well, that's a nice pipe dream. But guess what? They did exactly what they said they were going to do. So I bought back in. So I was lucky because I got to buy back in at less than I sold. So I was fortunate in that regard. It didn't cost me, but I did bail on them. So now I think Old Jock's point is Hive's doing the exact same thing right now. And if Hive does the rest of it, which is perform and get to that 24 exahash, just like at that time, when they borrowed that 500 million, that's when they said, we're going to go get to 20 exahash. And, they were only at a couple of exahash at that point. And I'm thinking, these are pretty big dreams. I'll believe it when I see it. Well, I've seen it. They did it. They got to 20. Forget 20. They got to 31. Now they're going for the 50. So they did a good job and they should be rewarded. And they won. And that's why this time I did buy. I just finally last week bought some Hive. I've been talking about it for several weeks, but I bought some because, I think they've been a company that does what they say they're going to do. Now, this is a big leap. They want to go from 6 exahash to 24. That's a 4x. So we'll see if they can do it and how much they need to get it done. But I take your point, Old Jock, and that is fair because I pressed the panic button, and I talked about it on stream. I'm worried about a $300 million company that has a $500 million at the market programming. But you know what? It worked out for them, and they did another $500 million after that. And it was all worth it because, now they're a top performing company. They're a top 4 Bitcoin miner. I've been saying Vanguard, BlackRock, and Morgan Stanley all hold over 3 million shares of MicroStrategy. Shouldn't you have a position? Inquiring minds want to know. So I actually do have a position in MicroStrategy. I didn't buy in when admin first told me to buy in. It took me a year to get on board, but I do have a position in that as well. Not financial advice. I'm not telling you guys to buy it, but I know admin got in at a fantastic price and has enjoyed a massive run up in that stock. Which reminds me of okay, well, I'll do this one while we're on MicroStrategy. Okay, so MicroStrategy has now rebranded themselves. They are now Strategy. Stock ticker remains the same. Their name is now Strategy. So Strategy resumes Bitcoin purchases, takes holdings to 478,740 Bitcoin. They bought 7,633 Bitcoin last night. So they're coming up on 500,000 Bitcoin, right? They're going to be there before you know it. They're the biggest holder of Bitcoin of any company publicly traded in the world by a mile. Marathon is in second place at 45,000-ish. So less than 1/10 of what MicroStrategy owns. but still a lot of Bitcoin. It's nothing to, it's nothing to shake a stick at to be the second largest holder of Bitcoin. And Riot's the third largest holder of Bitcoin, and CleanSpark's the fourth largest, and Hut's the fifth. So I like those hodl plays in 2025 because I think Bitcoin's going to run, and they're going to have great financial performance because of that. So that's just my opinion. Okay, so here to Edmund's point, BlackRock increases ownership of Strategy, which is MicroStrategy, to 5%. So this came out over a week ago. So that is to Edmund's point. They continue to increase their position in MicroStrategy. So, I like to follow the big guys, not exclusively. That is certainly not my only buying decision. But, I also take solace in the fact that with Marathon and Riot, the two biggest holders in both of those companies are BlackRock and Vanguard. So, they're in on those. I don't think they're in there to lose. So Melon Gaming said it would be hilarious if Bitfarms stock ended up being the biggest winner in the space at the end of the cycle. I think there's going to be a lot of winners, and I think Bitfarms is going to be one of them. Are they going to be the biggest winner? I don't know, but I think it gets overlooked because they missed their target by so much. It gets overlooked that they doubled in size in 2024. There was only 4 other Bitcoin miners that were able to do that. So, they had a huge growth year, and their stock got absolutely decimated. Their stock was down 49% in the year 2024, a year they doubled their exahash rate. So I think there's a correction coming for that. That's my opinion. In the meantime, for as long as I've been saying that, it has continued to head in the wrong direction. So I'm not right yet, if ever. So this is what happened this week. I'm going to close out on this. Just taking a look at week to date, year to date. So Bitcoin ended up 2%. I don't know why these aren't in the right order, but you can see, Cypher up 2%, BitDigital up 1%, Marathon up 1%, Hive up 1%, Core and Bitfarms 0, BitDeer -1. Like, this was a very uneventful week. You had a couple of winners. IREN was up 4%. That's a 2x on Bitcoin. Riot, like I said, was the winner of the week this week. They were a dog last year. 10 months of the year, they were in last place out of these 12 Bitcoin miners. Now, Bitfarms finished in last place at the end of the year when it was all said and done with. But Riot was one of the big losers last year. So this week they did well. And then if I go to year to date, IREN up 32%, Cypher up 31%, Riot up 20%, CleanSpark up 14%, all while Bitcoin's only up 4%. So we do have some companies where the tide is turning. And 2 of these companies are the HODL companies, Riot and CleanSpark. So here's Marathon up 1%. They're another HODL company. And Hut at 0, they're the other that has 10,000 or more in their HODL. Some of these have pulled back. BitDeer's down 24%. But, if I go here, if you look at December, Bitcoin was down. The Bitcoin miners got destroyed, and BitDeer was up 52%. At the time, what I talked about, I could not find any reason at all for that move. So what's happening is what often happens is if you go, now that's reversing itself. So while other companies are doing well, BitDeer's pulling back a little bit. The other 2 that are in second and third last place, TeraWulf and Core Scientific, if I go to the year 2024, they were the number 1 and number 2 best performing Bitcoin mining stocks in 2024. So it is not surprising to me that so far early in the year, they are lagging behind. And I don't think that's because these are bad stocks and bad companies. I think that's because these had so much catching up to do that some of these are finally starting to catch up. And I think more of that is to come. I know it's very slow going. And these are tough charts to look at. And this is a hard space to be in. So I understand the people who have left or who want to leave or who are saying nasty things in the comments section, but again, at the end of the day, everybody's got to decide for themselves whether these stocks are, do your own due diligence. I think this is the millionth time I've said these are very volatile stocks. So please do your due diligence before you jump into these. And you don't really fully understand. And most of the people watching have been in this space a long time. You don't really understand. Oh, thank you. We just hit 100 likes right now. So if you haven't, please smash the like button. Most of you have been in this space a while and you know the volatility. But if you haven't and you're recently new, this volatility can be shocking. And I'm going to show you a day we had. And this drove a lot of retail investors out. This was Monday, January 27th. This was one day. TeraWulf down 30%. Core Scientific down 29%. This is one day. One day. BitDeer down almost 25%. IREN down 24%. HUT down 24%. Cypher, that rounds up to down 24%. BitDeer down almost 16%. Riot down 15.5%. Bitfarms down 14%. The best performing Bitcoin miner on the day was Marathon, down 8.5%. This is a train wreck. It takes a long time, right? We're looking at these year-to-dates. We're looking at IREN, which is one of the leaders year-to-date. Well, they had one day this year where they were down 24%. And even with that one day, IREN's up 32% year-to-date, even though they took a 24% hit in one day. So this is what I'm talking about with volatility, and it's not new. We get these days. That's not the first down. That's not the first red day we've had that looked like that. We've had a lot of green days that look like that, and we've had even more volatile days than that. We've seen 50, 60, 70% moves in some of these stocks in the past in a day. So I'm not saying that's what's coming in the future, but I am saying expect, as has always been the case, a lot of volatility in this space. So if you can't deal with it, just know up front that this is the deal. Midway number one, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. It says BitDeer's market cap is more looking ahead to 2026 when they'll have enough megawatts online for 100 exahash to 400 exahash at 6.5 joules per terahash with their own seal miner A4s. So that's right. If BitDeer executes, these are some of the, and this is the risk reward. If you're willing to take the risk, if BitDeer executes exactly everything that they said they're going to do, they're going to be a gigantic winner. They make their own machines at 6.5 joules per terahash. Most of these companies are thrilled to be at a fleet efficiency of 20 joules per terahash right now. Now, obviously, every single year, that number goes down and down and down and gets more competitive. CleanSpark's now down to 16.15 joules per terahash on their fleet. IREN's at 15 joules per terahash. But yeah, Midway, if they get, if they are patient and wait until they get that, Seal Miner A4 chip out, if I was them, I would just take it on the chin between now and then and not buy a lot of machines. Why should they buy their A1s at 13.5 exahash when a year from now they can buy their A4s, make their A4s at 6.5 joules per terahash. So, that's a massive difference in fleet efficiency. So, they could be over the years, they could be one of the big players and one of the big winners. So there's a bunch of companies that have positioned themselves and given themselves a chance to win in this space where the market's given up on Bitcoin miners and it's in fashion to say, well, go long Bitcoin, short the Bitcoin miners. Be careful of narratives. That's all I will say, because when you hear the same thing over and over and over, there's a reason that, that type of information circulates around. They're trying to take our money. So again, I'm not recommending any stock. You guys, please do your own due diligence and thoroughly understand the volatility. But I have, a lot of confidence that a bunch of these stocks are going to have a really good 2025. So with that, is our time to wrap it up. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on the live stream. George was not with us today. He is at the boat show in Miami. So typically it's me and George. He'll be back next week. I want to thank all of everybody who gave a super chat, special thanks to, and of course, all of the members, special thanks to the subscribers, and to everybody that joined us. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing to the channel. We talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time. That's what we do here. So everybody have a great weekend. Have a great long weekend if you happen to be in the U.S. and if you happen to get the day off on Monday. The stock market will be closed in the U.S. on Monday. So everybody have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.